The Leopard 2A7V is the newest main battle tank in the German tech tree. As you can see, it sits at the very end of the Leopard 2 line. You can research this vehicle for the cost of 420,000 research points, and you're going to have to get those points using rank 7 and above vehicles. And for the most efficient grinding, make sure to use the Leopard 2 PSO, as this will give you an additional 10% bonus to any RP you earned towards the Leopard. The 2A7V sits in the 8th rank of the German tech tree at battle rating 11.7 for arcade, realistic and simulator. After you have managed the mammoth task of grinding this out, you're going to have to purchase it for 1,120,000 silver lions. After you've taken a small loan to afford the purchase price, you're going to have to take out another one to get the expert and ace qualifications. For another 1,120,000 silver lions, you get the expert, and for 2,300 golden eagles, you get the ace quali. When we first unlock the tank, we're going to get the DM12A1, pretty decent round, 480mm penetration. We also have the DM33, which is being fired out of the L55 cannon, giving us a pretty good 287mm of penetration at armor angled at 60 degrees. Not a bad stock shell at all, to be honest. It's a lot better than grinding with the Heat-FS of the old days. Get parts in FPE as usual. I'd then try and go for the NVDs. Don't bother with the DM11, it's not really that useful. It's not as good as a Soviet HE, you can't really splash people down with it. I'd then either get DM53 or the laser rangefinder. The laser rangefinder is going to be a lot more useful in my opinion, as it does give you a better snap onto target. Then get the DM53, then focus on everything else. We'll do not equip the mine protection, as you can see it adds 2.5 tons of additional weight. Once you've unlocked the vehicle, you're going to have to put it in your lineup for the cost of another 320,000 silver lions. But the benefit of this thing being the very end of the German tech tree is that we have a plethora of vehicles to go in the lineup with it. As you can see, I personally use all the slots available to me, but you can take just 5 and still have a decent lineup. I would personally, if you are limited to 5 slots, just take the Flarak Rad, the 2A7, the 2A6, the PSO, and the Radkampfwagen 90. If you have more slots available, pick and choose the vehicles which you seem to favour more. So the Leopard 2A7 is looking pretty decent so far, but it is a mammoth grind to unlock this tank. And is it worth your hard-earned time playing and suffering in rank 7 battles? Well boys, if you'd like to know more about this tank and whether it's still in the meta a month after the patch, stick around for the rest of the video. Alright lads, welcome back. So the engine power of the Leopard 2A7 isn't really something that was upgraded during the modifications. We're still using a 1,500 horsepower engine, combined with the weight of the tank of 64.1 tons, gives us a power to weight ratio of 23.4 horsepower per ton. This is a little bit less compared to the Leopard 2 PSO, which is before this tank in the tech tree, but as we'll see in the firepower and survivability sections, the 2A7 more than makes up for this slightly weaker mobility. Overall though, the mobility of the 2A7 is by no means bad, but you certainly can feel those few extra pounds being added onto the hips. It doesn't really like to turn in tight spaces, and it's getting a little bit sluggish, kind of like the Challenger 2s. But boys and girls, if you do find yourself in a little bit of a precarious situation in the Leopard 2A7, we do also have 12 smoke grenades. These are mounted towards the rear of the turret bustle and fire 2 at a time, giving you a total of 6 smoke grenade pops. The smoke grenades though are just one of the many features that this tank has to enhance its survivability. If we take a look at these cutaway images, we can see that the entire fighting compartment is basically protected in one way or another. Frontally we have the very thick composite armor schemes, and on the side of the tank we do also have a spall liner for both the fighting compartment in the hull and in the turret. Taking a look at another angle, we can see that both the roof of the hull and the turret both also have spall liners. This means from side aspect shots you are going to have a lot of reduced spalling from incoming Sable rounds. Like the T90 and the STR V122, the spall liners largely are a little bit of a gimmick. They aren't going to do anything against frontally incoming rounds, as the Sable is just going to bypass it. But it does keep you safe from enemies that you haven't detected and they try to shoot you in your side, as it usually doesn't lead to you dying in a single hit, which I guess is good for your crew members and your sanity in top tier. But regardless of your spall liner, if we take a look at this next image, you can see that the gunner, commander and loader are all located basically sat on each other's laps, having a pint of beer, I suppose. So a well-placed shot is just going to kill you in a single hit from the side. Just bear in mind, your spall liner does help, but it certainly doesn't make you invulnerable. So what about the armor protection of the Leopard? Well, against the T80 BVM and its spicy 3BM60 Svenets 2 round, I guess. Yeah, Svenets 2. Nearly lost track there. We actually have some pretty decent protection, I'm not going to lie. The upper frontal plate, or I guess this bit of the tank here, gives us very good protection, which is quite surprising for a NATO main battle tank, as they usually have very weak hull armor. The upper frontal plate is also pretty much an auto ricochet, unless the tank is below you, I guess, so you can shoot down onto it. The lower frontal plate, again, is a joke. If you're getting shot here, then your tank commander's basically fucked you. The other weak spot is obviously the turret breach here. This thing will knock out the gun, as well as spall and kill pretty much everyone in the turret, pretty much every time you shoot there, at least with a high penetration round. If an enemy chooses to harness the magical world of chemistry and takes a high explosive round, a shot to the top of the turret is also going to send your crew members to Anglo-Saxon heaven, I guess. I don't really think that's Valhalla, or whatever it is. We can also shoot the driver's port here and also send the crew to heaven. So against Sable or high explosive, you are easily killed in this tank if an enemy knows what they're doing, especially against Chinese and Soviet players, as even hull down, you are still incredibly vulnerable to chemical weapons. So while a skilled opponent will be able to dispatch you incredibly quickly, luckily for you and unluckily for them, we can also deal out a huge amount of damage, as the Leopard 2A7 is armed with the 120 L55 gun, giving us a much higher muzzle velocity. We can carry 37 rounds in total, but only 15 of those are classed as first stage ammunition, so taking anything more than 16 rounds into a match will mean that ammunition is stored in the hull of the tank. Just to clear that up, there are 15 rounds held in the ammunition storage in the back of the turret, and the 16th round, or the last round, is the round that is in the gun at the start of a match. We have 20 degrees of gun elevation and 9 degrees of gun depression, allowing us to utilise our very good turret armour. As you'd expect, we have a 2-plane gun stabiliser and a decent reload speed, but it's certainly not amazing, at least compared to a Challenger 2 or the Type 99 or even the Abrams now. When stock, we have a reload speed of 7.8 seconds, but if you did what I said and purchased the Ace Crew with that bank loan, it can get it down to 6 seconds. 6 seconds is 1 second slower than the Abrams and the Challenger 2s, and it is 2 seconds slower than the Japanese tanks. But it is a lot faster than the 7.5 second reload of the Type 72 tanks, but you only have a faster reload than the T80s if you do have an Ace Crew, as they have a constant 6.5 second reload. As I said, it definitely is worth investing in that Ace quality. The turret traverse is also pretty good with 40 degrees per second with an Ace Crew, allowing you to swing that turret onto target incredibly quickly. In terms of the fire control, the gunner has a 4x zoom as standard and an optional 12x zoom. For me personally, I think 4x is a little bit too zoomed in. I prefer like a 2x zoom found on the Challenger 2s, for example. Luckily for me though, the commander also gets a commander's view which has a 2x zoom as standard and an 8x optional zoom. Both the gunner and the commander gets a 2nd generation thermal imager for their sights, and the commander also has an override allowing him to fire the gun when he wants. This is mainly useful on the more wider open maps of War Thunder. We can use the rolling hills to use that commander's sight to snipe enemies into the distance. For what rounds are we going to be using to snipe people? Well, we cover the DM12A1. This is a stock shell, traveling at 1200 meters per second and penetrating 480 millimeters of armor. Certainly not a bad heat-fest shell, but I think we'd all rather be using a Sabo. Luckily, we do get the DM33 as standard, travels much faster at 1700 meters per second, and can penetrate 500 millimeters of flat armor or 287 millimeters of armor angled at 60 degrees. We can also unlock DM11. This is a programmable high explosive round. You basically have to set a distance with your laser rangefinder, and the round will explode after a set amount of time when it reaches that target. This is not a proximity fuse warhead found on many Chinese and American main battle tanks. It isn't really useful whatsoever, despite its nearly 4 kilos of TNT filler, especially considering that you can only really take 16 rounds into battle with the Leopard 2A7. I wouldn't waste a ammunition spot by taking HE. I'd just stick to our next round, the DM53. This travels faster than the DM33, only by about 60 meters per second or so, so not a major increase, but we can penetrate 652 millimeters of flat armor and over 370 millimeters of armor angled at 60 degrees. So that's 150 millimeters more flat penetration. It is insane. The DM53 is undoubtedly the best round at top tier, and in combination with that L55 barrel, it gives it a hell of a lot of distance to travel while under pressure, giving you a mammoth muzzle velocity. There's no tank currently in War Thunder that can withstand the DM53, at least if you aim for the common weak spots. So there certainly is no downsides about the firepower of the Leopard 2A7, and there's not really any other enemy tanks which you have to fear it, to be honest. There are lots of other tanks which are faster than you and can get into better spots at the start of a match, but if you find yourself going one-to-one with an enemy tank, you certainly have the firepower to ruin the match. Apart from the main gun, we also have two machine guns, one mounted coaxially and one on a pinto mount, fired by the commander. However, these machine guns are 7.92 or 7.62 I guess now, so they can't really be used to shoot down helicopters or slow moving jets, for example. It's essentially just for marking enemies on the minimap. So boys, to conclude, the Leopard 2A7 is basically a Leopard 2A6, but with second generation thermal imaging for the gunner's sight and some minor improvements to the survivability. While this doesn't sound much, in game it has a huge benefit. Having high-res thermals just allows you to perceive the map around you so much better, it allows you to rapidly acquire targets, and it allows you to aim for weak spots faster. I'd still recommend switching back to the normal view before firing though, as I find it personally easier to aim, but I think the increased resolution of the thermals is probably the biggest issue people had with the Leopard 2A5 and the 2A6. So many German players, and myself, have very much enjoyed the Leopard 2A7. It's a great tank, it's a very German vehicle, it's not flamboyant or high risk, it just likes to take things nice and slow and by the book. Find yourself a nice little corner to camp or a nice rolling hill, stay hull down and shoot at people at medium to long range, and you're going to have an absolute blast in this tank. It isn't a sexy spicy vehicle though, like a T80 BVM where you can just hold W and fire third person and get a kill randomly for some reason. But if you've made it all the way to the top ranks of the German tech tree, you probably certainly don't need me telling you how to play. Anyway lads, thank you very much for watching it to the end of the video. I'd like to take a moment to thank my YouTube producers, Lola Alphonse, Tans, Deboa LX, Dr. Bob, Tomster013, RS28 Sarmat, Schlunty, Van Haler, Diogenes, Econ, and newest member Alan Hacker. Thank you lads for supporting the channel, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.